Hello out there. I am here once again, Adelike Fola Ladipo on Inspiration Moment. This is Vanguard Live. The last time we spoke about gratitude and we've spoken about courage. We've talked about what do we do with courage in some situations that we find ourselves. And it is not every time that it is sorrowful that we forget to be grateful to God. Today, we're going to be talking about this aspect of our life that we can never run away from, and that is the reality that has come to be with us, which is grief. What is grief? How do we show grief? How do we experience it? We all know that grief is this natural way of showing or expressing the loss of a loved one. When you hear the sound or the news of a loved one taken away from you suddenly, you break down in tears. You become sorrowful. Sometimes you could even sink into depression, especially when it is somebody that is very, very close and dear to you. The world is grieving. Everyone today, one way or the other, are going through one moment of grief or the other. How do we deal with it? How do we respond to this? We all have to know one thing about life. There is a time to live, and there is always a time to die. For a time is appointed for all this in our lives, and we can never run away from it. But dealing with it is what we must come to accept and work on. So how do we deal with grief? First, when you hear the news or you receive the news of the loss of a loved one, the first expression is shock. You'll be torn apart. Nobody wants to lose any of their loved one. A child will not want to lose his father. A wife will not want to let go of her husband. A mother would not want her children to be torn away from them. Death is a journey that they will never return from. So the loss is a permanent one that is so difficult to deal with. But sometimes, is it just about death that causes grief? It may not necessarily be death. It may not be the loss of a loved one immediately. It could even be the news of a terminal disease. It causes grief in the heart. It causes severe pain in the heart. So when we hear the news of the loss of a loved one, we are completely torn apart. We are in shock. And sometimes we begin to ask questions. Sometimes before even we ask questions, we deny it. We disbelieve the reality. You hear someone, they tell you he is gone. Say, no, it can't be gone. It couldn't have died like that. We do ask those questions at the moment that, during the moment where we're in shock. Then you see the next stage. We begin to feel guilty. We begin to blame ourselves. Probably if I had done this, probably this wouldn't have happened. Maybe if I had, maybe if. But we've forgotten that many a times it is not in our power to control. It is not anything to do with us. God is the only one that has the control over who lives and who stays. Then the next stage, we begin to sorrow deeply. At this point, some people may sink into depression. They are completely torn apart. And how did this happen? And what are the things that causes this? The thought of how do I continue with this person? How do I live life? How do I cope with this disease? How do I cope with all this? How do I move on in life? And the ability to contain and be able to take on the pain deep inside vary from individual to individual. And if care is not taken, some people may go into depression. But if we are able to get someone to talk to, open up to share our moment of grief with, it does really help. When you have people around you to comfort you, when you have people that are willing to soothe you during that moment that you are going through your grief, or that you are grieving, it goes a very long way in relieving us. I do wonder sometimes, how do you comfort people that are grieving? A woman that just lost her husband, what would you tell her? How would you comfort her? A mother that lost her only child to sickness, to death, to terminal disease, and thereafter ended up dying. How do you comfort such a mother? I remember some times ago, a distant friend, her only child, her only son, was serving in the East. He just left home about 2 days, and the news that got to her on the 3rd or 4th day was that he had passed on. He died. Only child at 24. And she was well grown, an elderly woman. Where will she start from? How do you want to comfort her? The only child that she even labored to have. So dealing with grief could be very challenging. But all I just pray is that God will soothe every one of us. God will comfort us in our moments of grief. Nigeria, you look around, coronavirus is everywhere. The world is suffering. The world is in total grief. There's actually if you look around today, virtually everyone has somebody that they know that is linked to them that is going through one moment of grief or the other. All we just pray at this moment is that God will soothe the pain. God alone, there's no amount of words can comfort the heart. I just received the news of a woman that lost her son to cancer. As I was on my way in, I'm still like affected by the news because it really touched deep down in my soul. Consider, if you were in the woman's shoe, how would you handle it? How would you cope with the news? The only thing I could say is that God, Him alone, could give us comfort in every moment. I have gone through grief moments, and I know what it is to lose a loved one. I remember also an experience when I lost my junior sister some years ago. When I came out, I went to get blood for her because she was on admission in the hospital. She needed more blood transfusion. To get blood, and as I was coming in, on the way into the ward, I met people coming out. And I was wondering, why are you people coming out? Why did you leave her inside? And they said, she was gone. Thank God I was not the one carrying the blood in my hand. Probably I would have dropped it on the floor. What I had with me, I dropped. And you know the interesting thing that happened? I turned immediately and I started running away. I just heard that voice like I should run away, like I should run away from, like I can run away from the situation. And by the time I come back, it is not happening. It was like a nightmare. They ran after me, they held me. I was shaking all over. Someone that I was just talking with, and suddenly she's gone. How do we respond to this? How do we react when we hear news like this? A widow that is out there, how did you react when you heard the news of the loss of your husband? How does it feel to lose a loved one? I'll be back shortly. Thank you. You're welcome back on this. Still talking about grief. Now I'm going to ask us, how long does it take for someone to stay grieved? How long does it take to grieve? Is there a particular time you need to grieve? For instance, I remember when I was actually mourning. I was given, for my husband, I was given a standard timing of 41 days. That this is a very, very compulsory moment where the woman is in seclusion to mourn her husband. And this is a kind of a respect. Not just a respect, but it is the culture. It is a time that we set out to mourn the man in the life of the woman when he's gone. Is it the same way with the men folk? Do men stay indoor for 41 days to mourn their wives as well? Well, the culture prefers that the woman should humble herself more in this period. And because women are more emotional, a man could easily come out of it, could easily move on. But a woman may not find it so easy to come out of. So she needed a longer period of time, whereby she needed to stay indoor and mourn the loss of her husband. But I tell you, it is not, even that 41 days is not even enough a period to take the grief out of your heart. The loss causes a kind of a break, a kind of a cut in the heart. There's a hole that is dug in the heart, where you need time to heal. You need time to heal. You need to go through a process of healing. You need to go through a process of healing for some long period of time. Even when you might have come out of that mourning's period, you still see yourself going through it for more than a year, even for life. Because at moments your mind flashes back and you remember the moments that you share together. At that moment you are sober. So in effect, there's actually no specific time that you can fix for mourning or for grieving. But the only thing we need, because we can't stay in grief for life, the only thing that we need is a time to seek for healing, so that we can come out of our grief and continue with life. And like I said earlier on, it is a reality that we have come to live with. It is part of living. grief can't be taken away from life. Our prayer is that the period will be far from each other. Our prayer is that we will all live long and that we will not see the death of young ones. And it will only be the death of the elderly ones as it has been prescribed by the Holy Book. That the young will die at 70, and when they are stricken in age from 100 and above, then they can die. But I want to pray for someone today. In your moment of grief, that you will receive peace. In your moment of grief, you will receive comfort. That mother that lost her son, be comforted. God is with you. That child that lost both parents in the same day, know one thing for sure: you are not alone. Help will always come. Help will always come. There will always be a moment of turnaround, and you will have this. And I can promise, if you believe in God, and that's why I said courage is most required at this time. You need to stand courageous. Hold yourself together. Pull yourself together. No amount of words that is spoken that could actually touch or heal the heart. But if you within yourself seek that courage and you begin to appreciate God even for that which you are, what you have, you will see that you become better for it. And learn to be grateful. The Word of God says, in spite of it all, be grateful to God. Seek for hope. Be hopeful that tomorrow will always be better. There will always be the light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you very much for listening out this day for another moment of inspiration. Till I come your way again, it is me, Fola Ladipo. Thank you.